Today's chapter is chapter 6, Enlightenment and Revolution, and this week is history. Type to start. The background or the time frame that we're talking about during the scientific revolution is from the 1300, the period of 1300 to 1600. During this period, the first incident that happened, as we took from the beginning, was the Renaissance, which was the appearance of the classical arts and learning based on classical ideas, which were the Greeks and the Romans. After the Renaissance came the Reformation, which was the time when the people started questioning the church and the beliefs. It started with Martin Luther, and during the time of the Reformation, the sub religion of Protestantism started emerging. Now, during the Enlightenment, that was the third event that happened after the Renaissance and the Reformation. The third thing that started happening was the Enlightenment. First, people started exploring life, they started studying art and literature, and then they started being more open when it came to religion, more tolerant. So the third step was scientifically. They needed to discover new things, not only about art and language and architecture and beauty, but there had to be extra findings and extra developments in the science field. So the scientists and thinkers during the time of the Enlightenment created great changes in science, which led to other developments in arts, government, and religion. So they all affect each other. The difference about Enlightenment is that these developments were based on theories. These developments were based on studies, not only opinions. The idea of the Enlightenment later on would affect the rest of the world, would reach the rest of the world, and would lead later on to the American Revolution. Now, during the Middle Ages, you remember that the Europeans followed the classical ideas, which were the Greeks and the Romans' ideas, and the Bible. These were the three pillars of any study. There was no evidence or scientific evidence or proof of anything that was stated. Now, during the middle of the 1500s, scientists started to question some scientific beliefs. Now we stopped questioning the Bible or the church. The other beliefs were about what if some of the scientific theories that were stated are not true. So what happened is they started creating new theories, or they started studying the things again, but this time based on three things: questioning old beliefs. This was step one. Observation and experimentation. So they went back to the theories and laws that were stated from the times of the Greeks and the Romans. Step number one was, of course, the willingness to question the belief. Is this statement or is this theory or is this law right or wrong? Question number two, observation. We need to observe the steps of these theories. We need to observe the theory and its rules. Number three was to experiment, to see again if what's stated is right or wrong. Now, according to Nicolaus Copernicus, he discovered that the Earth revolved around the Sun like the rest of the planets, and the Moon revolves around the Earth. What happened is that before the Enlightenment, there was a geocentric theory. According to the classics, according to the Roman and Greeks, Earth was the center of the universe, and all the other planets and the sun revolved around it. Copernicus questioned this statement. According to the steps of the Enlightenment, He started questioning. Number one, he started his observation and his experiments, which led to the discovery of the heliocentric theory, which stated that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but instead the Sun was the center of the universe, and that Earth, along with other planets, revolved around it. This was the idea that he questioned and discovered that it was false. But he was scared that he would get killed because he's now questioning a lot of basics. So he did not publish his findings, and this theory was not exposed until he died. Now, following his uh, discovery, Galileo started following the same questioning of Copernicus, and he made several extra discoveries. In order to experiment and observe the planets carefully, he had to create a telescope. Therefore, Galileo created one of the first telescopes to study the planets. After creating the telescope, he proved Copernicus's theory. And of course, his findings and observations was against the church because from the moment of the Protestantism and the civil war that resulted from the religion, the church therefore claimed that any changes would be done by the Roman Catholic Church itself. So what they were doing was against the rules. He was forced by the church to deny his findings about the heliocentric and the geocentric theory. But the ideas were exposed and it started spreading between people. So far, do you understand the difference between the heliocentric and the geocentric theory?
Miss, can you explain it again?
Yes.
Which part do you want me to explain it again?
The difference.
Difference between what?
The geocentric and the other theory.
Geocentric means that the Earth was the center of the universe. This was discovered during the classical times. The Greeks and the Romans believed that Earth was the center of the universe. Copernicus,
Mm.
based on his studies and experiments, discovered the heliocentric theory, which stated that Earth is not the center of the Earth, but Earth is not the center of the universe, but the sun is the center of the universe, and Earth, along with
Mm.
other planets, they move around it. Clear?
Okay.
The Copernicus's findings were not published even after he died, but the one who took the studies and started experimenting even more with more details and more proof was Galileo. And when he spread the statement or the discovery of the heliocentric theory, he was forced by the church to deny that this is true. Clear? Yes, Peter? Okay. Now, later on, during the Enlightenment frame, they developed a scientific method. The scientific method was a way or a systematic way for anyone in any field to go in certain steps in order to start a new approach or a new exploration or a new theory.
Mm.
The scientific method had certain steps. Step number one was to ask a question. You need to direct your search into a certain place. So you need to ask yourself a question. According to this theory, the geocentric and the heliocentric, the question was, is Earth the center of the universe? This is the statement question. Question number two, step number two, you need to form a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a statement that leads to several other questions that, for example, the hypothesis should be that, for example, if Earth is the center of the universe, then there are certain circular axes around Earth that will lead to planets. If Earth is not the center of the universe, then there will be only one axis, which is for the moon, and there will be no other centers or no other planets that will revolve around it. This is, for example, a hypothesis. It's a statement that we need to check if it's correct or not. Number three, or step three, we need to perform the experiment. Here, performing the experiment was using the telescope to observe space, to observe the sky, and to know if this is true or not. Finally, step number four is to use the results either to prove the hypothesis if it's right or wrong. If I find my results, I state them. These results would tell me, is my question in step number two correct or not? Do you all understand the steps of the scientific method?
Yes.
Grade 12, is it clear?
Yes.
Following the
Yes.
scientific
Yes.
method,
Yes.
Isaac Newton started this following the scientific method, and he discovered the law of gravity. He used math to show that the motion of the planets, they have the same impact on humans on Earth, which means that things attract, and there's a force called gravity that is found on all the other planets, but with different proportions. There are planets with very high gravity that would make you as stiff as a rock on Earth and you cannot move. There are planets with very low gravity that one movement of or one step of your foot would make you fly because of the very low gravity. So, according to the scientific method, he started asking a question: is there gravity on any other planets? He started making a hypothesis. He performed experiments using the telescopes and certain other methods, and he finally proposed the statement that the law of gravity, it's a force that pulls any object to the center of the planet, and this force is proportional to the weight of the object on the planet. Do you all understand?
Yes.
Now, what you're
Yes.
supposed to do is remember what we did with the Muslim Empire, the timeline.
Yes, yeah, Miss.
Okay, you need to use your notebooks to draw a timeline for the events during the Enlightenment. Your timeline should start with event number one, which is Renaissance, okay? With no details. And line number two on the timeline, or dash number two on the timeline, should be Reformation. Now, dash number three should be the beginning of the Enlightenment. From the point of Enlightenment, use a different color. In the Enlightenment, you need to start with the first dash, which is Copernicus. And under Copernicus, you will write the geocentric and the heliocentric theory. Then second
Miss Minda,
dash, yes,
I'm sorry. From where do you want us to change the color?
Enlightenment, which is this lesson. يعني write um, Renaissance and Reformation, let's say with pencil, and then with blue, start writing the dashes or the information with, for example, any other different color. So under Enlightenment, The first dash is Copernicus. Second dash is Galileo. Under Galileo, you will write confirmation of the heliocentric theory. And then number 3 is the new approach of the scientific method, or the creation of the scientific method. 4, Isaac Newton and the law of gravity. Clear?
Miss, can you explain the part where we changed the color
I
again?
already did. Starting this lesson, which is enlightenment, everything that we say about this lesson is in a different color than Reformation and Renaissance. They did not happen in the same
Okay.
time frame. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Miss, is this an assignment?
It's not an assignment, but it's something that you have to do as we're explaining. يعني today I will stop at this, اللي هو new inventions. Up until we reach to
So
the
we don't have to send it to you later?
No. You don't have to send it. I'll check it at the end of the week.
Okay.
This is for you to study. This will help you when you study, because as we go along the whole chapter, it's 30 slides. It's all full of inventions, medical inventions, tools, people, physics, chemistry. يعني you have a lot. So it will be easier for you to write it on a timeline. Okay? So 4 was Isaac Newton and the law of gravity. 5, the invention of the microscope. 6 is the weather tools. Okay, microscope. They were allowed to see creatures or very small creatures that the pure eye or the naked eye cannot see. The weather tools, barometer and thermometer. Clear so far?
Yes.
Okay. This is why we're stopping here. This is the last thing that we're stopping for today. Now, why was the scientific revolution important? It was important because people started understanding more that you cannot say anything without proof. You cannot just make a rule without reason. So they started rejecting the ancient beliefs. They started rejecting the church's rules that were based on obeying only. Instead, scientific revolution promoted more that you need to study, you need to put everything by reason, and you need to think before you put any rule. Which means that for every decision that's made or for every rule that's made, there has to be reasons and there has to be proof for your reasons. The scientific method became the new philosophy that was used all over the world up until today to prove that any theory is correct. Okay, now you need to go back to your book to the pages 193 and 194, because it tells you in details the tools, the scientific tools and instruments that were invented in chemistry, biology, and the details of the microscope and the thermometer. Okay, so this is where your timeline for chapter 6, section 1 is going to stop. Clear?
So we include the significance of scientific revolution too?
You don't have to write it on the timeline, no. You need to know why was the scientific revolution important.
Okay.
Then you need to go to your book, page 193 and 194. You will find a page and a half that talks about chemistry, biology, about certain instruments, certain books that were invented, discovered, and created during the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution. Clear? You need to include them in your timeline. Is this clear to everyone?
It is clear.
Okay. Do you have any questions concerning today's session? Grade 12, any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, this is where we're stopping today. I'll see you tomorrow.
Miss Minna, I have a question, but it's not in history. Like, it's about sociology.